Hey guys, it's Christian, your Vancouver realtor, and the topic for today's video is Zillow loses $500 million on house flipping. And so I wanted to share this with you because I read about it in the news, and there was a very good podcast on the Wall Street Journal site as well about it. But there's lessons that we can take from this to apply to our local market and really understanding. And I think those two lessons are: one, real estate is very local in nature, and two, that house flipping is really hard to do right. So I'm gonna share some examples, some stories with you. So let's dive in. Now, the first thing is Zillow is like the Amazon of home buying. So if you lived in the US, you'd go to Zillow.com, you would search for homes. And they've got a couple interesting tools. Zillow has their estimate called their Zestimate. And that basically gives you, you click a button, it gives you a quick number on the value of your home. So homeowners in the US love it. Now, the Zillow, the way they make money is they sell advertising to real estate agents, mortgage brokers, and banks and so on. And so that's how they make their money. Now, in 2018, they jumped into this house flipping business. And they went into it because some of the startups in the US, a few others were into it as well, and they didn't want to be left behind. And so they just started buying up thousands of homes in different cities and suburbs across the US. However, the last quarter, as I just mentioned, didn't work out well for them. They lost $422 million in one quarter. And the reason for that was home prices didn't keep going up. And secondly, their algorithm tool wasn't working properly. And that kind of ties into the very first lesson we want to talk about, which is that real estate is very local in nature. So for example, you might have a house in Burnaby on one nice, beautiful tree-lined street. 50 meters away is a similar house, and it's looking straight at a cemetery. Well, there's going to be a gap in value there of maybe $100,000, maybe more, because people don't want to live next to a cemetery. Most people, anyway. So that's very important. Real estate is very local in nature. Another example, you got a condo on the second floor of your building, and you might be facing the laneway. There's, that's where the dump truck comes and picks up the garbage, and it's an alleyway. It's not going to be the same as a second floor unit that faces onto a park, obviously. And very hard to factor in all of those particulars into an algorithm. And so that's why their algorithm was just off, and they ended up paying way too much money for these homes. And now they're selling these homes at about a 5% loss, which is a lot of money to be losing, which is what they're losing. So anyway, the second lesson I wanted us to take from this is that flipping is really hard to do. And, I think there's a lot of TV shows in the US especially, and it's usually some small town like Topeka, Kansas, where it's like two brothers, they go and they buy this fixer-upper for $125,000 and they sell it for $200,000, 6 months later or something like that. Maybe that works in small town USA, but flipping is a hard business to do right. You can lose your shirt in it. And I'm always, let me give you some examples on it. So, for example, here in the Vancouver area, let's say you were going to go and buy a tear-down house in Burnaby, or a very old one, a fixer-upper. You pay $1.5 million. Right off the bat, your first cost is $28,000 in property tax. Second is, it may take you 6 to 12 months to fix the house up. You're going to have carrying costs. You're paying the bank a mortgage every single month. You've got to then source the right contractors. It's hard to find a good contractor right now who's going to get the job done on time and who's going to do a good job with it. Plus, you're still got to get the materials. Materials like lumber have gone up 30%. And I haven't even touched on labor prices yet. So it's very hard to do flipping well. Flipping works for somebody who's actually inside the business, a contractor, an electrician, a plumber. I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, I had a client. He was an electrician. His dad was in the home building business, and he helped his son buy a place, his very first place. It needed a lot of work. They did the work. His son lived there for a couple of years, and then they ended up selling the property. They saved on the labor because they did all the work themselves. So that saves a lot of money. And because they know the ins and outs of the business, they know exactly how much the materials cost, who to get to do your plumbing, and so on. So for somebody like that, flipping's great. But if you're getting into flipping for the very first time, you really need to know the right people. You have to have the right contractor who's available, who can get on site right away. Not easy to do. A counterpoint to this, I had a guy who does renovations professionally once say to me, Christian, I think that I would have made just as much money, if not more, if I just bought the house in a rising market and sold it a year later and didn't bother with the renovations. So, and if you think about 2021, that is very true. If you'd bought pretty much anything in January and you were selling it today in November of 2021, you'd be making money. You didn't need to put one paint stroke of paint on any wall in that house. You would have been making money. So I really want to underscore that point. If a big company like Zillow can lose hundreds of millions of dollars, and these guys are data giants like Amazon, like Google, it's not easy for the guys like you and me either to be flipping. And just on that point, I have seen articles in local newspapers here in Vancouver that touch on this flipping issue, and they'll say, "Oh, this house sold for $400,000, profit in 12 months." Again, they oversimplify the issue. It's a lot more complex. Like, that's somebody who is obviously a seasoned pro. They know what they're doing. They've got the right trades, and they're sourcing the right materials. They've obviously got their money and are able to get the mortgage on the property and so on. It is not an easy business to do. Just do this with professionals. All right. So that was what I wanted to share with you today. If you enjoy the video, give us a thumbs up or subscribe, and we'll see you next time.